The Varak Dominion had ruled the stars for longer than most races could remember. Their banners of conquest hung over 1,000 worlds. Their fleets darkened skies, and their armies turned fertile planets into wastelands of ash. To the Dominion, war was not a test of survival. It was a harvest. They conquered, consumed, enslaved, and moved on. Civilizations that once thought themselves eternal, the proud Avreks, the unyielding Thol, the brilliant Kasari, vanished into the void, reduced to whispers in outlawed archives. The Dominion's strength was such that none dared oppose them. Where their armadas appeared, resistance crumbled. Where their generals walked, entire species bowed. Their conquest was never questioned. It was inevitable, like night following day. And so their gaze turned at last toward the forgotten frontier, the Sol system. To the Dominion, it was a minor curiosity. Earth was no empire, no hub of galactic politics. It was a backwater, a blue world where an obsolete species clung to survival. The Varak High Command laughed when their scouts reported human settlements still clinging to primitive soil. Some remembered old warnings whispered in council halls about humans, the Deathworlders, dangerous when provoked. But those words were dismissed as relics of myth. The Dominion had erased countless myths before. Humanity would be no different. The invasion began with the precision of inevitability. Massive carriers darkened Earth's skies. The Dominion's dreadnoughts arrayed themselves in orbit, their cannons primed to crack continents. On the surface, billions looked upward and saw the fire of conquest descending. Some prayed, some despaired. None believed there was hope. But deep beneath the silence of Earth's orbit, a relic stirred. Hidden in the blackness between Earth and its moon, cloaked by generations of secrecy, slumbered a warship. Not a vessel of the Dominion, nor of any council world, but something older, something human. They called it the Aegis Eternal. It was said to have been built in the Age of Fire, when humanity had not only walked among the stars, but bent them to their will. When wars against galactic empires were not fought for survival, but for dominance. When humanity was feared, not forgotten. For centuries it had slept, its engines cold, its weapons silent. Programmed with one command, one purpose, to awaken only when Earth itself faced extinction. Now, with Dominion fleets poised to rain death upon the last human world, that hour had come. The stars flared. From behind the curve of the moon, the Aegis Eternal emerged like a phantom. Its hull was scarred by ancient battles, blackened and pitted, yet unbroken. Weapons arrays bristled across its surface, their designs alien to every eye save humanity's. Its silhouette alone seemed to radiate menace, as though the void itself recoiled. For the first time in centuries, humanity had answered. The Dominion laughed when their sensors first registered the ship. A single warship against an armada of thousands? It was a foolish gesture, a final defiance before extinction. But when the Aegis Eternal's systems awakened in full, laughter died. The first volley erupted, a storm of energy so dense it split space itself with blinding arcs. A Dominion dreadnought, the pride of their fleet, evaporated in a single instant. Another followed, torn apart before its shields registered the attack. Then another, and another. The Dominion's commanders barked orders, unleashing their fleets. Waves of frigates, destroyers, and cruisers converged, their cannons pounding the human relic with firepower that could have crushed an empire. But the Aegis Eternal moved with the grace of a predator long starved. Its shields absorbed the storm, then retaliated with annihilation. Its weapons tore through formations, scattering ships like leaves in a gale. Missiles screamed from hidden bays, weaving through enemy defenses with intelligence of their own. Each strike, a death sentence. In the silence of space, the Varak Dominion felt fear. Not since the birth of their empire had they known an enemy that fought like this. Not since their earliest wars had their fleets been so utterly broken. Every ship they lost, every dreadnought reduced to wreckage, shattered their illusion of invincibility. The High Commander of the Dominion, watching from the bridge of his colossal flagship, felt the impossible truth claw into his heart. The myths were real. This was what the elders had warned of. Humanity, the Death Worlders, the species too dangerous to enslave, too cunning to subjugate, too stubborn to erase. The Dominion had believed humanity broken, their strength buried beneath centuries of obscurity. But here it was, alive in the form of a single warship, a guardian forged from desperation and fury. The Aegis Eternal advanced. Every strike it delivered was precise, merciless. Dreadnoughts crumbled. Carriers exploded into fire. Frigates scattered like insects, only to be hunted down. On Earth's surface, billions watched the sky burn with streaks of falling wreckage. What they saw was not despair, but a miracle. The enemy retreating, their invincible fleets undone. For the first time in living memory, humanity was not helpless. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome had been decided within minutes. The Dominion's fleets, once endless, dwindled into wreckage. Their armadas that had crushed empires were reduced to twisted husks drifting silently through Earth's orbit. At last, only the High Commander's flagship remained, its weapons shattered, its shields failing. The Aegis Eternal loomed before it, silent and unyielding. The High Commander stared at the monstrous ship on his view screen and whispered words that no Varak had spoken in centuries. We were wrong. The Aegis Eternal's final barrage ended the Dominion's reign. The galaxy would remember that hour, not as the Dominion's final conquest, but as their extinction. They had dominated galaxies effortlessly, enslaved billions, rewritten history itself. But all their power, all their arrogance, ended in the shadow of one forgotten world and the warship that guarded it. For in their final hour, the conquerors learned the truth the galaxy had long buried. Humanity never dies quietly. The Zir Collective believed themselves eternal. They were not conquerors in the crude sense of steel and fire. They were architects of erasure. Where their fleets marched, civilizations did not merely die, they were unwritten. Languages vanished. Histories dissolved. Archives incinerated. Their victory was not only over flesh and stone, but memory itself. Entire peoples were reduced to ash in body and silence in record. The Zir's strength came not from overwhelming numbers, but from a terrifying precision. Their fleets moved as one organism, minds interwoven in perfect synchronicity. To fight them was to fight inevitability, a tidal wave that could not be resisted. World after world had fallen, empires scattered to dust, and soon even the word resistance would hold no meaning. For centuries, the Zir swept across the spiral arms of the galaxy, their victories effortless, their dominance unquestioned. And then, in the twilight of their campaign, their fleets reached the edge of a dim, forgotten sector. There, a blue planet turned slowly around a yellow sun. Earth. To the Zir, it was little more than a curiosity. Their archives listed humanity as a primitive, fractured species, once ambitious, but ultimately insignificant. Other empires had dismissed Earth centuries ago, deeming its people too volatile, too dangerous to trade with, too self-destructive, to endure. And so, humanity had been left behind, fading into obscurity while the galaxy marched on without them. The Zir saw no threat here. Only another conquest, another flame to extinguish. Their dreadnoughts arrayed themselves in Earth's skies, a lattice of shadow that turned night into perpetual eclipse. Civilian transmissions filled the void, pleas for peace, cries of fear, prayers whispered in the dark. The Zir did not answer. They never did. Their fleets prepared for orbital bombardment, the first step in the ritual of erasure. And then, something stirred. At first, the Zir mistook it for interference. A faint pulse of energy radiating from orbit, old and buried beneath layers of silence. But as their sensors focused, they saw it, a colossal shape emerging from Earth's shadow. Its hull bore scars older than the Zir themselves, blackened by ancient battles, yet unbroken. A warship, human in design. The Zir laughed, or the closest their hive minds came to laughter. A relic? A single vessel? It was meaningless against their thousands. But even as they dismissed it, the ship's systems roared to life. It was not just a relic. It was vengeance. The warship's name burned across its hull in characters the Zir had long erased from memory. Soul's Wrath. Forged in humanity's lost golden age, it had been hidden when Earth withdrew from the stars, left to sleep until the day its people faced extinction. For centuries it had waited, silent and patient, carrying within it weapons the Zir had never known, and an AI that knew only one purpose: defend humanity at all costs. When Soul's Wrath moved, it was with the fury of a predator awakened. Its first volley carved through space itself, shredding 3 Zir capital ships before their formations adjusted. Its second barrage ignited the void, scattering fleets that had never known defeat. For the first time in millennia, the Zir collective hesitated. Their hive minds surged with disbelief. No enemy had resisted them in living memory. Their strategies were flawless, their fleets perfect. Yet this lone human warship was tearing through them with surgical precision, as if it had been waiting for them all along. They unleashed their fury. Thousands of ships converged, their weapons pounding, their formation tightening into a wall of annihilation. Yet Soul's Wrath absorbed the onslaught, its shields flaring with ancient brilliance. It countered with firestorms of kinetic lances, missiles guided with ruthless intelligence, beams that sliced through hulls like a blade through paper. Zir destroyers cracked, dreadnoughts imploded. Carriers erupted into blossoms of flame. The battle was not a clash, it was a slaughter. On Earth, billions watched from the surface. Through trembling eyes and shattered communications, they saw their skies burn with falling debris. What should have been the end of humanity became something else: hope. The Zir were not gods. They could be beaten. The collective, desperate, poured everything into one final gambit. Their flagship, a construct the size of a small moon, unleashed the full might of the hive. Energy storms cascaded across space, threatening to overwhelm the human relic. The Zir believed, hoped, that sheer force would succeed where precision failed. But Soul's Wrath was more than metal and weaponry. It was the distilled will of a species born from a death world, a people who had survived everything their own planet had thrown at them: ice ages, plagues, wars, extinctions. Humanity had built this ship not merely to fight, but to endure. Its AI activated its final protocols. A weapon locked away, forbidden even to humans themselves. The Zir flagship's sensors detected a singularity forming within Soul's Wrath's core. Before they could react, the weapon fired. The void tore open. Space itself folded, ripping the Zir fleet apart. Their flagship shattered, their hive minds screamed, and their fleets, once perfect, collapsed into chaos. The Zir collective had erased countless civilizations without effort. Yet in their arrogance, they had awakened the vengeance of the one species the galaxy had sought to forget. As the last Zir ship burned in silence, Soul's Wrath drifted above Earth, scarred but unbroken. Its AI scanned the void, confirming the extinction of the invaders before returning to its silent vigil. The galaxy would whisper of that day for centuries. The Zir collective, invincible, eternal, unquestioned, had fallen not to an empire, not to an armada, but to one forgotten world's hidden guardian. And so the myth became truth once more. Humanity may be overlooked, dismissed, even forgotten. But they are never truly gone. For in the shadows of obscurity, they wait. And when the final hour comes, they answer not with surrender, but with fire. The Calorian swarm was not a people. It was a hunger. World after world fell beneath their tide, not in conquest, but in consumption. They were endless, vast fleets of living ships, driven by an instinct older than memory. When the swarm descended, planets cracked and bled. Civilizations that had stood for millennia were stripped bare in days. The Calorians did not negotiate, did not enslave. They devoured, and they never lost. Every race that tried to resist was erased. Empires that had ruled half the spiral arms vanished in their wake. The galaxy trembled as the swarm grew stronger. With each feast, absorbing technologies, stripping resources, weaving all they consumed into the hive. To face them was to embrace extinction. At last, in their final wave of expansion, the swarm came to a lonely sector of the galaxy, the Sol system. They expected nothing of worth. Earth was barely mentioned in the records of galactic archives. An isolated, wounded world, its species fractured, forgotten, and irrelevant. To the Calorians, it was nothing more than another resource cache, another carcass to pick clean. The swarm converged. Tens of thousands of bio-dreadnoughts swam through the void, their hulls glistening with organic plating, their tendrils pulsing with bioluminescent fire. They encircled the Sol system like predators toying with prey. On Earth, fear spread like wildfire. Humanity had heard whispers of the swarm from fleeing refugees, entire species broken and wandering, carrying stories of horrors that blotted out the stars. Humanity knew what was coming, but they had no empire, no fleets to defend them. They had only desperation, and desperation, in humanity's history, had always been dangerous, buried deep beneath Earth's crust, sealed away in vaults of steel and stone, slept a weapon humanity had sworn never to unleash again, the Ark of War. It had been forged in an age when humanity had stretched across the stars, when their empires clashed with powers long since turned to dust. The Ark was not just a warship. It was a legend, constructed in secret. Its design was older than the swarm itself, created as a failsafe should humanity ever face extinction. For centuries it had slept, hidden even from Earth's own people, its existence known only to whispers and myths. It was not meant to fight for glory. It was not meant to conquer. It was humanity's last answer. When the Calorian swarm breached the asteroid belt and descended upon Mars, the Ark awoke. The Earth trembled as ancient locks disengaged, as titanic machines groaned awake. From the depths of hidden silos, the Ark of War rose, tearing through the crust of the planet that had been its cradle. It ascended into orbit like a leviathan reborn, its hull blackened, its silhouette sharp and terrible. The swarm paused. For the first time in their endless campaign, hesitation flickered through their hive. Something about this ship was wrong. It was not prey. It was not food. It radiated a presence the swarm had not felt in countless ages, a predator's challenge. The battle began with a silence that shattered into fire. The Ark of War unleashed its first salvo, kinetic lances the size of mountains, accelerated to near-light speed. They tore through Calorian dreadnoughts, vaporizing them before the hive could react. Its secondary batteries ignited, releasing storms of plasma that melted swarms of organic fighters into molten clouds. The Calorians screamed. They surged forward in a tidal wave, tens of thousands of ships converging on the lone human relic. Energy beams lashed against its shields, living hulls rammed themselves against its armor, tendrils clawed and tore. The Ark endured, shuddering beneath the onslaught, its systems roaring back with ancient fury. Each weapon that awoke told the story of humanity's past wars, missiles that outthought their prey, beams that sliced space into ribbons, cannons that struck with the fury of collapsing stars. For every Calorian ship destroyed, 10 more rushed forward. Yet the Ark did not falter. On Earth's surface, humanity watched the sky burn. Every explosion that lit the heavens was a prayer answered. Every Calorian wreck that fell like fire across the atmosphere was proof. They were not defenseless. The swarm, enraged, released their flagship, a bio-colossus the size of a moon, its body a grotesque fusion of flesh and star metal. Its maw opened, unleashing a gravitational torrent meant to crush the Ark into nothingness. But the Ark was waiting. It activated its final protocol, a weapon humanity had hidden not from the galaxy, but from themselves. At its core, reactors howled, folding space around them. The Ark of War became more than a ship. It became a singularity-born weapon, designed for one terrible purpose, to end anything that dared threaten humanity's survival. Its main cannon fired, a spear of energy tore across the void, a sun condensed into a single ray of annihilation. The Calorian flagship convulsed, shrieking across every wavelength. Its body ruptured, collapsing inward before exploding in a storm that consumed half the swarm's remaining fleet. The hive broke. Without their flagship, the Calorian minds fractured. Order turned to chaos, instinct to panic. The Ark of War hunted them without mercy, its weapons erasing ships faster than the swarm could retreat. One by one, the endless tide was reduced to wreckage, their hunger silenced. At last, silence fell. Across the Sol system, the swarm who had devoured galaxies effortlessly were gone. All that remained were their drifting carcasses, glowing embers in the dark sea of space. The Ark of War, scarred and battered, returned to its silent orbit above Earth. It did not bask in victory. It did not seek glory. It had only done what it was built to do: answer extinction with vengeance. On Earth, humanity wept, not with fear this time, but with relief. Against the galaxy's greatest predator, they had survived. And in that survival, a message was carved into history. One the galaxy would never forget. Humanity may falter. Humanity may fall silent. But when cornered, when pushed to the brink, they will always rise with an answer. And that answer will be war.